When Gunsmoke hit TV screens, it wasn't just another Western, it became the Western. Cowboys, dusty streets, danger around every corner. Fans loved it all. But behind the shootouts and saloon doors, there were moments the cameras never showed. Moments that made the cast laugh, blush, and sometimes stare a little too long. And yes, one outfit worn by Amanda Blake stopped everyone in their tracks. On screen, she was Miss Kitty, strong and classy. Off-screen, her wardrobe had the crew whispering and looking twice. What was really going on behind those famous Dodge City scenes? Join us as we take a closer look at the show, the cast, and the surprising behind-the-scenes moments that left everyone talking. How Gunsmoke became a legend. Gunsmoke wasn't just another Western, it started as a radio show in 1952, created by Norman Macdonnell and John Meston, and it was set in Dodge City, Kansas during the 1870s. The story followed U.S. Marshal Matt Dillon as he tried to keep peace in a town full of danger, drifters, and troublemakers. On radio, actor William Conrad played Matt Dillon and gave the character a tough, deep voice that fans loved. For years, the radio show ran without a sponsor, and CBS kept paying to make it because they knew they had something special. Radio expert John Dunning later said, "Gunsmoke is routinely placed among the best shows of any kind and any time." That gives you an idea of how strong the show really was. When it moved to television in 1955, everything changed, but the heart of the story stayed the same. The television version ran for 20 seasons and 635 episodes, making it one of the longest-running scripted shows in American TV history until The Simpsons passed it. In its prime, it was hitting top positions in the ratings year after year. Critics even compared it to Great Ancient Stories, with Los Angeles Times writer Cecil Smith calling it our own Iliad and Odyssey. From legends of the West to everyday life in Dodge City, viewers felt like they were stepping back into history every time an episode started. The show's success didn't stop when those early seasons ended. It also won 15 Primetime Emmy Awards, and later inspired 5 TV movies. Still, even with all that success, the real story of Gunsmoke's rise only gets more interesting when you look at how it made the jump from radio to TV and who almost got the role of Marshal Dillon, from radio voices to TV faces. Moving Gunsmoke from radio to television wasn't smooth. Norman Macdonnell loved radio so much that he once said, "Our show is perfect for radio." He worried TV would take away the mystery and detail that listeners imagined in their heads. But CBS wanted to bring Gunsmoke to TV, and they pushed forward even when the radio team wanted to keep things the same. Fans of the radio version did not like the change at first. They thought the TV actors were imposters because they wanted William Conrad and the radio cast to continue. Conrad even auditioned for TV, but he didn't get the job. Producers thought he looked too heavy for the role. The same happened with Raymond Burr. Once he stood up, one director joked his chair stood up with him. It's long been rumored that John Wayne was offered the role of Matt Dillon, but actor Dennis Weaver later said Wayne was never considered. Director Charles Warren also said the idea would have been preposterous. What did happen was Wayne recommended James Arness. In fact, in a story retold by James Stewart, Wayne said Arness would be a terrific choice. The result? James Arness became Marshal Matt Dillon, the face of Gunsmoke on TV. Dennis Weaver joined as Chester Good. Milburn Stone played Doc Adams, and Amanda Blake stepped into the role of Miss Kitty Russell. Meston, the original writer, stayed and made sure the series kept its tone and style. That move helped keep old fans around and bring in millions of new ones. But as the cast settled into Dodge City on TV, the stories and their characters got even deeper. Life in Dodge City on screen. Once the series began airing on TV in 1955, viewers were hooked. For its first 6 years, Gunsmoke aired as 30-minute episodes. Then, in 1961, it became a 1-hour show, giving more time for story and character development. The show quickly climbed to the top of the ratings, reaching number 1, and stayed in the top 20 through 1964. Most episodes focused on life in Dodge City right after the Civil War. Marshal Dillon was always there to protect the town. When he left town, trouble followed, and his deputies often struggled to handle danger without him. Chester Good was loyal but unsure of himself. Later, Festus Hagen replaced him, bringing his own charm and personality. Doc Adams was caring but stubborn, often arguing with patients who wanted fast cures. Even though Dylan and Miss Kitty never openly had a romance, viewers could always feel their bond. Miss Kitty stayed strong in the saloon, helping people, keeping secrets, and showing heart in a place where life wasn't easy. They filmed the show at what is now California Lutheran University and nearby Wildwood Park in Thousand Oaks, California. The music also became iconic, starting with the theme Old Trails, known later as Boot Hill. It was written by Rex Corey and later released by Tex Ritter with the Radio Orchestra. The show's creative team, including composers like Jerry Goldsmith and Elmer Bernstein, helped build that dramatic Western sound. Week after week, audiences tuned in. But even the most successful shows face moments they don't expect, and Gunsmoke's end came as a shock to everyone on set. A sudden ending to a TV landmark. After 20 seasons, nobody on the show expected Gunsmoke to end. From 1955 to 1975, it had been a steady part of American television. The cast thought it would continue for at least 1 or 2 more years. But CBS made the decision quietly, without warning the stars. They didn't announce it publicly at first. They didn't prepare a final goodbye episode. The cast and crew simply found out from industry news, not from the network. James Arness later said, "We didn't do a final wrap-up show. The network never told anybody they were thinking of canceling." For a show that defined the American West on TV, the ending felt sudden and emotional. Fans had spent 2 decades following life in Dodge City. They watched characters grow, new roles appear, and legends form. Even when the series stopped, Gunsmoke lived on. Reruns continued. Fans held on to their memories, and the network later produced 5 TV movies to give viewers more time with Marshall Dillon and the world they loved. The radio version had already stood as one of the most respected dramas ever made, and the television run created a legacy few shows have ever matched. In the end, Gunsmoke didn't just tell stories about the Old West. It became a part of American TV history. A show viewers still talk about and remember, especially when looking back at what really happened behind the scenes. James Arness, the unbreakable Marshal. In most long TV shows, it's common to see actors leave. Sometimes it's because of other jobs, sometimes personal life, or sometimes creative changes. But Gunsmoke was different. James Arness, who played Marshal Matt Dillon, never left, not once. The show aired 635 episodes across 20 years, and he was in every single one. That made him a record-setting star in TV history, only behind Kelsey Grammer, who played Frasier on Cheers and Frasier. But unlike Grammer, Arness was the main focus almost every time. He didn't step away, and even when his scenes were short in later years, he was always the leading man. His commitment earned respect from fans and the entire cast. Arness had been a soldier before acting. He was drafted in 1943, fought in the Battle of Anzio, and was shot in the leg and foot. He earned a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart, but the injuries never fully healed. They caused pain for the rest of his life. Because of that, the show adjusted for him. His walking scenes were filmed early in the morning when he had more strength. It showed discipline and strength, and it made his character feel even tougher on screen. But when it came time to choose the man who would play Dillon, Arness was not everyone's first thought. And the story behind the casting brings us to another Hollywood legend. John Wayne, Miss Kitty, and Romance That Never Was. A lot of fans still believe John Wayne was offered the role of Matt Dillon, but the truth is, he never was. There's no proof that the studio tried to give him the part. According to director Charles Marquis Warren, Wayne didn't even like television. He once joked, "John Wayne lived near me, and we met at his bar and sat around reviling television." He hated TV, so no, he wasn't waiting to step into Dodge City, but he did play a part in the choice. Wayne suggested James Arness for the role, and that recommendation helped make Gunsmoke history. When it comes to Amanda Blake's character, Miss Kitty Russell, Fans always wondered if she and Matt Dillon would ever become a couple. The truth is, they never did on screen. There was love and closeness between them, but nothing happened officially. Amanda Blake once said Kitty wanted Matt to say, "Kitty, let's buy a hunk of land and raise some beans and kids." But she knew that would change everything. It would turn the show into a different type of story. She joked it would become I Love Lucy Out West. James Arness agreed. He said if they made Dillon and Kitty a real couple, they would have to get married and then you'd have a different show. That choice protected the mystery between them. But Miss Kitty had another secret most viewers did not know. And it was revealed in the radio version. On TV, she was a classy saloon owner. But in the radio show, her business was hinted to be something else. Creator Norman Macdonald once said, "Kitty is just someone Matt has to visit every once in a while." Time magazine later joked she was obviously not selling chocolate bars. That one line hinted at a deeper, more adult backstory, something TV could not show at the time. And Miss Kitty was not the only interesting character connected to Gunsmoke. The cast lineup, the guest stars, and the unique rules of Dodge City brought even more surprises. Famous faces, real rules, and one big network decision. Over 600 episodes means hundreds of actors passed through Dodge City. There were 10 regular cast members, 7 recurring ones, and many guest stars. One of the most famous guest actors was Burt Reynolds, who played Quint Asper from 1962 to 1965. His character was half native, and the storyline said he wasn't allowed to drink inside Dodge City. Reynolds later became a huge movie star, but Gunsmoke was one of his early big breaks. The show even inspired a phrase we still hear today, "Get out of Dodge," meaning get away fast before trouble comes. Kids loved saying it back in the 60s and 80s, and it stuck around for years. Another fascinating moment came when Gunsmoke saved its own life and ended another show. In 1967, Gilligan's Island was doing well in its time slot, but CBS President William Paley loved Gunsmoke. So when ratings dipped, he moved Gunsmoke into Gilligan's slot. That move canceled Gilligan's Island and kept Gunsmoke alive for 8 more years. One show left, another survived, all because of one executive who wanted to see more life in Dodge City. And as the show continued, more surprising guests appeared. Even the stars of Star Trek made their way to the Old West. William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, and James Doohan, all from the USS Enterprise, appeared in different Gunsmoke episodes. There was never a sci-fi crossover, but their presence showed how huge the series was. Big actors wanted to be part of it. The Frontier and the Final Frontier crossed paths, at least on casting lists. Unexpected endings and unfinished goodbyes. You see, a strong ending is important for any TV show because fans want answers, closure, and a feeling that the story truly ends. But Gunsmoke did not get that. Instead of a big emotional goodbye, the cast and crew were surprised when the network suddenly canceled the show. James Arness later explained, "We didn't do a final wrap-up show. We finished the 20th year. We all expected to go on for another season." The actors did not know ahead of time, and there was no last episode written to close Matt Dillon's story. Luckily, they were able to return for 5 made-for-TV movies later, which gave fans a small chance to see the characters again and get a bit more closure. But before those movies happened, the show ended suddenly, leaving viewers wondering what would have happened next. And speaking of endings, one of the most shocking moments in Gunsmoke history involved the very last person who died on the show. And it was a familiar face. Matt Dillon's final shot and surprising victims. Gunsmoke had plenty of fights, gun battles, and danger. And Marshal Matt Dillon was forced to take down many outlaws over the years. Historian Marshall Trimble once said, "Dillon shot 407 people across the series and the later movies. Some lived, but many did not." The final on-screen death in the original TV run was especially surprising. The last character to die on Gunsmoke was played by actor Gary Busey, and his character died from a brain tumor in the episode. That quiet ending stood out in a show known for dramatic shootouts. Casting choices also had surprises behind them. When the show was first being made, The producers looked at 26 different actors for the role of Matt Dillon. William Conrad was the first actor considered. He already had radio experience playing a U.S. Marshal, so he seemed like a natural fit. But ultimately, James Arness was chosen, and the rest became history. And while Arness became one of TV's longest-running stars, years later another show would eventually break Gunsmoke's record, but it took a long time to do it. Records broken, protests heard, and pain behind the scenes. Gunsmoke stayed on TV for 20 years, a massive achievement, especially in the 60s and 70s. It remained popular and continued to draw viewers. It took nearly 30 more years before another show passed it. In April 2020, The Simpsons finally reached 673 episodes, beating Gunsmoke's 635-episode count. But while The Simpsons needed 3 decades, Gunsmoke did it in only 20 years. Through that long run, some changes happened due to outside pressure. The show's original opening scene included a gunfight, and viewers saw it every week. But during the Vietnam War, Americans became more sensitive to violence. People protested, and the show eventually changed its opening to remove the gunfight. That was not the only challenge the show faced. James Arness, who played Matt Dillon, stood 6 feet 7 inches tall. His height made him look strong on screen, but it caused problems later. He developed arthritis toward the end of the show's run, making long shoots painful. Because of this, the crew allowed him to film all his scenes for an episode in 1 day. Even with pain from his old war injuries and arthritis, Arness continued to work, proving just how tough he really was. And while Arness battled through physical pain, the show faced a different kind of influence from companies outside the studio. Cigarettes, cameos, and a radio start. In the 1950s and early 1960s, cigarette companies ran ads everywhere, even near schools. Doctors appeared in ads recommending brands. TV shows also had tobacco sponsors, and Gunsmoke was no exception. L&M Cigarettes sponsored the first 7 seasons. James Arness even appeared in ads promoting L&M's Gunsmoke each week on CBS TV. That ended when the Public Health Cigarette Smoking Act banned cigarette ads in 1970. While Gunsmoke was a Western, it surprisingly connected to other famous shows. The cast of The Brady Bunch appeared in separate episodes. Christopher Knight, who played Peter Brady, showed up in Season 14's The Miracle Man. Eve Plum, who played Jan Brady, appeared in Gold Town. Susan Olsen, little Cindy Brady, appeared in 2 episodes in Seasons 14 and 15. And the cameos did not stop there. Charles Bronson played a villain named Krigo in 1956, and later returned to the role. David Carradine appeared as a horse thief. Leslie Nielsen played a gang leader, and other stars like Nick Nolte, Dennis Hopper, Sam Elliott, Richard Dreyfuss, Kurt Russell, and Harrison Ford all passed through Dodge City before becoming icons. Before all of that, though, Gunsmoke lived its first life as a radio show. CBS President William Paley wanted a Western for adults, something more serious than shows like The Lone Ranger. The radio version had a darker tone than the TV show. When the series switched to television, the radio actors auditioned, but none stayed in their roles. Still, one person from the radio days did continue. Writer John Meston stayed on, and many early TV episodes came straight from his original scripts. His writing helped keep the heart of the show alive. And just like that, Gunsmoke's journey moved from sound waves to screens and into history. How Festus, Sam, and Chester found their place in Dodge City. Festus Hagen became one of the most loved characters on Gunsmoke, but his journey to the screen was not a straight line. Ken Curtis actually played several small parts before landing the role that would change his life. One early role was as a Texan cattleman who didn't survive his episode. But in Season 8, Episode 13, Curtis showed up as Festus for the first time. His energy, humor, and rough charm struck a chord with viewers. That led to him becoming a full-time cast member the next year. Festus was funny, loyal, and always wandering the streets of Dodge City with a watchful eye. Curtis later explained he based the character on someone from his childhood, a man named Cedar Jack, who made cedar fence posts. That real-life inspiration helped make Festus feel natural and honest on screen. While Curtis was finding his place on the show, another actor, Glenn Strange, was building a legacy in a completely different way, one that stretched far beyond Dodge City. Glenn Strange's legacy and Dennis Weaver's unexpected journey. Glenn Strange, known to fans as bartender Sam Noonan, had one of the most surprising careers on the cast. Before pouring drinks on Gunsmoke, Strange stepped into the shoes of Frankenstein's monster in 3 Universal horror films during the 1940s, taking over after Boris Karloff. He even mixed comedy and horror when he appeared in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in 1948. By the time he joined Gunsmoke, he was already a veteran actor. Sadly, the long-running Western became his final acting job. Strange passed away from lung cancer in 1973, but his memory stayed alive with the cast. Actor Buck Taylor cared so much for him that he named his 3rd son after Strange. That kind of tribute shows how deeply he was loved. Meanwhile, another cast member had a very different start. Dennis Weaver, who became unforgettable as Chester Goode, almost didn't even try out for the role. He later explained, "I looked at the part, and it was so inane I thought, well, nobody could be this silly." Weaver thought the producers wanted him to read for Matt Dillon instead. He even stuck his head back into the room and asked, "Are you sure you didn't want me to read for Matt Dillon?" He regretted the first audition and asked for another chance. This time, he used the famous accent fans came to love, and he got the part. But once he got the role, one more twist was waiting for him. A limp, no first name, and choices that became history. Chester Goode quickly became more than just a sidekick. When new actors auditioned for Matt Dillon, Dennis Weaver was asked to read with them, and suddenly, there was a problem. Weaver's performance was so strong that he came off like the lead. To fix this, producers asked him to add a physical trait that would tone down the leading man energy. So Weaver came up with a limp. He practiced it in his backyard until it looked right. It worked well for the character, but he soon regretted it, because once he committed, he had to limp in every single episode he appeared in. While Chester helped shape the early years, another longtime character was quietly building his own style. Doc Adams, played by Milburn Stone, spent more than a decade treating injuries, solving problems, and bringing steady wisdom to Dodge City. Even with all that time on the show, he still did not have a first name. After 16 years, producers finally asked Stone to choose one, explaining that no one knew him better. He picked Galen. These details, from Chester's limp to Doc's late revealed name, became part of what made the show so unique. And behind it all, the show itself continued to change and adapt to the world around it in surprising ways. Miss Kitty's exit, awards, and missed roles. Amanda Blake, who played Miss Kitty Russell, was determined from the beginning to join Gunsmoke. She had been acting since she was young and signed to MGM as a teenager. When she heard the radio show was turning into a TV pilot, she pushed hard to get the part and would not stop until she succeeded. For 19 years, she stood behind that saloon bar, watching every gunfight, secret, and whisper in Dodge City. She also developed a close friendship with Glenn Strange, who played the bartender. When he passed away, it hit her deeply, and she left the show before its final season, partly because of his death. While she became iconic, she wasn't the first choice. Actress Polly Bond was originally offered the part, but she turned it down because it would have meant earning more money than her husband, actor Tommy Bond, who worked in TV production. She feared it would add to the strain in their marriage, which was already struggling. In the end, Amanda Blake filled the role and became unforgettable as Kitty. Gunsmoke also earned respect beyond ratings. It received 15 Primetime Emmy nominations, 4 Golden Globe nominations, 2 TV Land Awards, 2 Western Heritage Awards, and writing honors from the Writers Guild of America and others. But not everything connected to the show turned into gold. In 1971, the series introduced a character named Sally Fergus in a 2-part episode. She was rough, tough, and unlike typical TV characters, a 62-year-old tobacco-spitting woman who helped a wounded gunfighter. Fans enjoyed her appearance, so CBS tried a spin-off called Dirty Sally in 1974. But even with an Emmy nomination for star Jeanette Nolan, the series only lasted 1 season. Still, it proved something important. Gunsmoke's world was so strong that viewers were willing to follow its characters anywhere, even when the journey did not last long. Still, the show's real magic wasn't in spin-offs. It lived in the moments on set that people never forgot. And nothing stopped the room faster than Amanda Blake stepping in as Miss Kitty, a dress turning a scene into an event. The dress that made everyone stop and stare. When Amanda Blake walked onto the Gunsmoke set in one of her Miss Kitty gowns, the room changed. The crew would look up, pause, and for a second, forget they were on a dusty Western set. This was not just a dress. It was a full moment. Bright color, shiny fabric, a tiny waist, and that big bustle at the back that made Kitty's silhouette impossible to ignore. People say that when she stepped in wearing one of her deep green dresses with lace and beads, nobody blinked for a second. Everyone just stared. You can almost picture it. The camera's ready, lights on, and then Kitty arrives like the queen of Dodge City. What made it more powerful was that Amanda helped shape Kitty's style. She knew exactly what message those dresses sent. Kitty wasn't just any saloon owner. She was successful, sharp, and strong. That gown was her armor. Fancy satin, glittering beading, and soft feathers. They all told the same story. Kitty had control in a world where women rarely did. And when the show switched to color in later seasons, the effect was even stronger. The gowns didn't just look nice, they glowed on screen. Every bead and ribbon caught the light, and the bustle made her walk feel grand and commanding. But behind that beauty, there was a challenge. Those dresses were heavy. The corsets were tight. Sitting, turning, even walking up the Long Branch stairs took effort. Yet Amanda handled it like nothing. She never let the audience see the struggle. She moved like she belonged in that gown, as if Dodge City itself waited for Kitty to enter before the day could begin. Fans still talk about those outfits today, and people who visited the preserved pieces at museums saw how detailed they really were. The stitching, the shape, the drama, everything was built for impact. Nothing was random. Nothing was simple. It was all planned to make Miss Kitty unforgettable. Which Gunsmoke moment or character still stays with you the most after all these years? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.